All right, we're delighted to kick off another conversation today with Radhakrishna. Just to kind of quickly introduce our podcast, Beyond Barriers, it's hosted by Wally, which is a digital accessibility platform that helps brands address both the user experience side of helping to support the accessibility community, but also the legal compliance. And so the Beyond Barriers podcast is a conversation with leaders, community evangelists that join us to talk about challenges of navigating an effective accessibility strategy. During these conversations, guests share their journey of successes and setbacks with a primary focus on how they've overcome specific issues that could have ultimately ended their journey or the company. And I'm really excited, like I talked about, to be joined by Radhakrishna, aka RK. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really delighted to have you on the show. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for giving me this opportunity. It's a pleasure being here and sharing on air time with you.
So before we get into things, I'd love to just hear a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Sure. Again, would like to thank you before I start for this opportunity. So I am Radhakrishna Aekbote. I work as a lead product designer with a company called Informatica. It's a company that deals with platform services and developer experiences. So currently I'm involved in creating and solving problems and challenges for the developer experiences, which is into integration and ingestion. So with that, I have an experience with the UX industry of around 7 years, right? So I started off my job with a company called PwC, where I was into consulting based design, wherein we have deadline based design. We have every new client in the next week. So we build them by hour. Back then we used to build them by hours. So if this week I'm talking to an aviation client, probably the next week I would be dealing with an e-commerce customer, or probably the following week I'll be designing for solving problems for a financial institute. So it was that kind of a setup there. I got a lot of learning and unlearning. Then I got a chance to move to a company called SAP Labs, where I was a part of their R&D team into supply chain. A lot of exciting stuff happened there. I was also an official UX researcher there with them. Got a chance to get along with users of a very different sort, which I would love to talk about later in our sessions. Designing for the supply chain and maintenance space, and then spent quite some time there, have an innovation idea with them, and now finally I moved to this role wherein I am looking after a few team members under me, they're juniors, and also leading products, 3 different product suites for my setup of UX design here with them. So that's what I've been doing professionally. But apart from that, I've been really passionate about design to an extent where love to elaborate them in a way that is much more simpler to understand. And I'm happy that I've been a go-to person to a lot of incoming people who would want to look at a career in design, or who want to get more hands-on, or how do we approach design in a day-to-day life. I'm happy to do that. And for that, I've been publishing articles on medium.com. I think I've published 8 of them currently, and they have been republished by popular UX publications like UX Planet and UX Collective. So been around that space, been around that publishing space for some time. And I think it's my 4th or 5th year, I guess. I think it's my 5th year that I've been a part of mentoring as well, wherein as a volunteer, as something that I give back to the community. I love the part where I get a chance to talk to youngsters or the professionals who want to move to design or have a different perspective of how have a different background, and they feel that they can be a part of a problem solving environment or a problem solving team. So I usually like to spend time with them, give them ideas, or be a part of their ideas to get around things. So I've been a part of a few schools like Bangalore Design School, Mas High School. So I've been a part of them and helping around in their mentorship activities. I am also an active mentor on adplist.org. So yeah, I think that's was that about design and how I evolved myself as a professional. But what's interesting is the part that I'm a mechanical engineer, and I do not have a design degree of an official sort. Whatever I got was a chance to learn on day-to-day basis. I think that's what makes me or my story a little different than the ones that are usually out there. and I'm happy to have this experience. I do not have I did face a few challenges initially, but that was the fun part, to know that you could do better every day, and every day was a clean slate for me to learn something new. And the best part of design is it allows you to do mistake. Great mentors allow you to have the best sort of mistake so that you can come up and learn. So I think this has been my journey where I've been welcomed for my ideas. I've been there around the space, and I am so happy at this moment that my work is being appreciated, and I'm just very, it's a moment of gratitude for me, for someone like me who has not been a part of it, and finally being able to be a part of this community, this wonderful community here. So yeah,
Yeah,
happy to be
I
here.
was I was so happy for us to come across one another, to get to know you a little bit before today's conversation, and that was part of what really stuck out to me was the diverse background going from the mechanical side to the digital side, and how you've taken that. And so I look at you, and so much of your background resonates with the folks that we talk to in the accessibility community. So
Mhm.
growing up and kind of building your accessibility expertise, can you share a little bit about what that journey was like for you to come in to be viewed as an accessibility leader in your field, and certainly the multiple fields of discipline that you've focused on?
Absolutely, I would love to address that, but Brian, to be honest with you, I I'm a UX designer, I think, and I'm not. I'm someone who considers accessibility as a part of my job, something that has to go along with what I do. I don't extensively look out for how accessibility goes out there, but I feel that it's a discipline that comes out in what being a designer is, and how do we solve problems, right? So the thought started when you know technology is being made available for most of us, and technology has been so advanced that you get to do a lot of things, call it B2B, E2E, or even B2C or D2C. A lot of things are happening in the space where things happen in a matter of clicks, and things also fail in a matter of clicks. So that's when we as researchers or designers come around the space to see, hey, let us look at what's going wrong, because we have confidence as what gone right, but what really goes around in the mind is, okay, what goes wrong and why is it going wrong? And just when you go further extend your miles, you take an extra mile every time, you understand that, okay, it's not about the user, it's not a fault of the user, nor it's also a fault of what the solution you're giving. Probably it's about how they look at it, it's how they understand it. So in the end, technology is sometimes looked after as a level where you have to get along with it, or you have to see yourself struggling to adapt to it, or you just have to be the person where you give up on technology. And we feel sad when we are trying to solve problems for the world, trying to make a word a place more with lesser complexity and think about the complex stuff. We often want to think about the folks who are not able to complete certain tasks in a way that we want them to, or they're not able to complete tasks that would fulfill them or make gain more trust with the system. So that's where the thought starts to solving for them. And one such block where we really find an opportunity to improve or an opportunity to scale is accessibility. And that's when it comes about, how about we go around helping people to do the tasks they do like a regular person. Now you could talk about 22 different types of blindness. You could talk about keyboard navigation. You could talk about haptic feedbacks. You could also talk about visual text or readable text that that speak to you, right? These have been the players that are around there, right? And still we find that we still have scope for improvement. So that's where we are coming in together to take extend our miles and to understand that, okay, we want to gain trust. And I think trust is the basis of how you go about accessibility, you go about problem solving. And to gain someone's trust or confidence, I think that's something that as a accessibility leader, or someone who's been around this space, that I would definitely vouch for. I'm sure there are a lot of mentors who guided me throughout this. I think they are way on top of their game today. But what I've learned from them or being around them is that, give chances, at the same time seek opportunities and talk to them. There's always a scope for improvement. So that's how I've been around this space. So
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head, and so much of what I love is that you said it's a part of your job.
Mhm.
So many brands and folks in the accessibility space that are trying to immerse themselves and get educated, or are a specialized role, um, trying to figure out how you take the disciplines across the content supply of the brand, and you immerse accessibility almost as a piece of culture and DNA. And I, I want to compliment you on the fact that it's a part of your job. It's a part of the discipline. And so, where in your career did you start to see accessibility arise? Was it just purely on the product design space, or was there earlier parts of the career that got you thinking about accessibility?
Well, I would want to talk about a time where it's about even before I used to like let's tell you a story about how it worked in India before. So mobile phones came into India and were of on most of them started using them around I guess 2005 to 2011, and that's where as a kid I got a chance to play with my dad's phone or to play with my cousin's phone or someone who would come to my and we would talk about, hey, can we look into your phone? And it's just exciting to see what's happening, right? So unless I have this motivation of going out there, learning, and believing that there is something exciting stored for me, right? So that's how I developed the curiosity for having yeah, I am able to do it. I'm able to play a game. I'm able to reach a high score, or probably I haven't even able to send an email from my phone. But when we look at the other folks that who are using it, some elderly folks in usually around me, they were kind of using a tele for transactional purposes. Hey, you know what, the the landline is being replaced by something that goes in my pocket, right? Now they're happy that there's something's going in my pocket. So when you talk about accessibility, that's a win. But when you talk about, are they entire using it to the best, are they using it simply to the best? So that's when I felt that, guiding them or understanding that, okay, why were they not able to be confident to send out that email? For me, it was about, trying to understand them, that where did the complexity lie? What part of screen that they were not able to understand? So what I could understand in my initial days when I was like, I think I was in ninth grade or 10th grade, is that I was able to play music. I was able to send an email, receive text, watch a video, surf the internet. But the people who owned the phone were only using it for receiving the conversation, probably send an SMS, or even, what you say, make a call, right? So it's about how we try to look around what is happening, right? They were not motivated because they feared that they might hit the wrong button. So the point there was to make them realize, okay, wrong buttons exist, but you can also choose the right button, and here is how you do it. So I think that was ingrained in me to help them know technology better, to help them be in their perspective or see how they operate technology. So now I can say the same people still own phones, but today, with time, I feel they're able to not only use a phone, make conversations, they are able to take pictures confidently, upload videos confidently, uh, send or receive money, pay their electricity bills, phone bills, or even listen to their music that they had probably heard to them in back in 80s or 70s, like their college time music. So you see, things have gotten easier because someone there out there is solving for them, right? But at the same point in time, there were a few users who probably were left behind. I wouldn't say behind, but probably would still find some challenging to to understand a button, or to have a usage about it. So to talk about where it began, I think it began for me in an early stage of life where I saw people adapting to technologies. I've been a part of uh, you know an environment in my childhood days that I have seen a telegram, I have seen a land phone, I have seen a mobile phone, I have seen a smartphone. In between, I had also seen an iPad or the music players, cassettes, CVD. So all of them is in a device now called a mobile phone, and everyone is happy to use that. So we have reached to a certain extent, we've been successful at it. But now we want to go further. We want to help. We want to reach out. The outreach should be more. So that's where I every day try to make myself available for them to reach out. So one of the applications that I use recently is be your eyes. So it works on GPT-4 platform, and you get a chance to register yourself as a volunteer there, right? So this is for the people who are blind or who have some sort of a blindness or will issues.
Visual
uh,
impairment. Yeah.
yeah, right. So visual impairment. Uh, you just have to be a volunteer there and register yourself that okay, you're ready to help, and you'll have to activate a few notifications. So I've been a part of a few calls that I've been fortunate enough to receive them, right? And then I've been able to tell them a person to read out his will that his father had left behind. So I had literally read out an email in an Indian language called Marathi. So I've helped him read through that and made him help him make the right decision, helping him out there in smaller chunks. He is making half of the effort of, using the application and calling me. The other half, I'm happy to do it. Hey, buddy, this is what was written there. Hey, you need to know which one is the Plink for t-shirt. Okay, hey, that one, the one that you're currently holding, that's something that you should wear if you're looking for a Pink Floyd t-shirt. Hey, you're in new to a place, you need to know where the switches are. Just turn on your camera, just turn on your flash, and I can tell you where it is. Probably you should put the second one or the third one. This is where I've been more actively involved lately with the help of GPT-4, and it is, I think, doing wonders. If you look at the numbers or the happy customers that they have been having, I would be wrong if I would use customers, but if you just look at how they are able to reach people, I am personally referring people and asking my friends and family to be on that application, so that we get to be, give back to the community, because what we understood from technology and digital products as such. So I enjoy doing that job. I'm happy that I help some people there. So
You touching the intersection between how the hardware and the digital spaces join, right? And I think
yeah.
that's a really interesting piece, because you had mentioned something when we first met in the first conversation, uh, that
Hmm.
was designing experiences that meet accessibility is around your ability to observe firsthand. And your volunteer work is sort of firsthand experience, but also I'm sure in the work that you've done today, observing those firsthand experiences and to observe from a product design perspective really takes on a different lens than building accessibility in a black box. So I'm curious, in today's role, and most recently, the challenges of implementing those strategies. I'm hearing a lot of the successes, but I'm just curious, what's the dark side of that you see of implementing accessibility strategies, and maybe let's start at a really high level, right? Like some of the macro issues that you see pressing in your role or in the community that you support.
Well, thanks for that question. I think something that I'm immediately able to relate to is something that I've seen happen in India. So India, I think, being the fifth largest economy, is home to 1.3 billion people. All right,
Yeah.
that's quite a number. I think we are I think we are one of the most populated countries out there, but still we call ourselves as the fifth largest or one of the rapidly growing economies. And I would like to tell you a success story there, and also how accessibility was made to be felt in a way that it gained trust. So I would like to talk about that. It might be a
Please.
little off topic, but then I would still want to take this opportunity because uh, I feel that India as a subcontinent went through a long phase of user research. Trust me on this. So that imagine having a user research run on an entire country, right? So there's this interesting fact. So India has 121 languages, and out of which 22 languages are considered to be scheduled languages by the constitution of this country, right? Uh, why I'm mentioning this fact is there are more than 27 states in India, right? And all of them have their own dialects, their own languages, and they communicate to people in a way they are more regionally bound, right? So they carry a different set of languages. So if I'm talking to someone from, uh, let's say, uh, let's say 300 miles from here, he comes from a different language, he comes from a different dialect of the same language, maybe, right? So now what happened here is there was this very interesting technology that is still out here called UPI. So UPI is a technology where I can send money to you and you can receive the money directly in your bank account, right? The vice versa, you send it to me, I also receive it. So it started with that. I think 2016, around 2016, I think that's when it kicked off by a
Hmm.
visionary called Nandan Nilekini, and then propagated by the current government, right? So uh, it had a slow start, right? I mean, it had a good enough start, but today, talking about UPI, it is home to 360 million UPI transactions on per day scale, right? So a lot of people would want to, if you take a walk in India, I think you would be happy that you have no cash with you, or you don't even carry, you don't have to carry an Amex or Mastercard or Visa for that sort. You just need to carry your phone, and you should have a phone that can scan a QR code, and then you're able to make a payment directly to his bank. So that's how easy it has been in India, and it took some time, right? It took some time to get there. What's the fun part about how I want to relate your question about noticing something that's happening around me and how I can tell about is, uh, these transactions initially were started off for a personal use. I will send it to you, or you would receive it, and splitting the bills, or planning
Yeah.
something that would automatically think there. Then moving around, then we go down to the merchant experiences, right? When I talk about merchants, uh, let me tell you, Indian market, the market of the business market in India, I think a majority of size is also the unorganized market, wherein there is it actually, if you look at it, closely comes approximately to $844 billion of an valuation. I think that was as per 2022, right? If I'm looking at my notes. So this crowd here could be anybody. It could be a small hotel, it could be a mid-sized hotel, or it could be the shopkeeper who is selling you groceries in a non-retail shop, on a shop where you know, he has his home behind, and then he has this setup in front of his home near his gate, that that's a grocery store, a retail store, where the local community, the people in the local colonies would go there and buy there, right? He usually is selling milk products, or milk, or some day-to-day items that would come off to use for household use. Let's talk about people who are farmers, right? They take their goods and they give it to a retailer, and they expect a transaction back. So even that, so these are the people who account for the unorganized market, right? And now what change has happened is, there's been this innovation, or I wouldn't say innovation, there has been this idea called sound boxes, right? And the sound boxes are nothing but devices that tell you how much money did you receive in your bank account, right? The fun part here is, in India, the unorganized market is not dominated by people who understand or who want to practice English in their day-to-day adventures. So now go back to the count. So we have 22 scheduled languages. So we have these sound boxes did a magic. The magic was simply talking to the people, to them in their own language, in a language that they understand. So it did that. Let's say, if I'm from a state called Karnataka, and here the language is Kannada, right? And in Kannada, uh, let's say if I am the shopkeeper, and someone has taken, uh, let's say what, uh, someone has taken a bottle of water from me. Someone has purchased a bottle of water, and I am not sure about how things sound in English, right? And then probably that is the reason why I may not be using a card, or I don't have a point of sale machine. I might still need some trust, or I still believe that there is some transaction charge involved. So these are the uh, mot- these are the demotivations that carry goes around them. And now suddenly I have this box, and then say, when someone uses their mobile phone and say they scan them up, and they say, hey, how much should I be sending it to you? And I say, hey, you could probably send me $4 for the bottle of water. And then you would receive that $4, and just by scanning the QR code. Not just that, you would be rest assured with a voice that can talk to you in your language, and it would say, hey, do not worry, you have this in your account. Thank you, the transaction was successful. Have a nice day. So it is, imagine this being told in 11 different languages. And that is the reason why today 8.5 million stores have these sound boxes with them. And one of the companies called Paytm has registered, they talk about how they sold 7 million sound boxes already, right? So that's a huge number. And most of this number, majority of them are motivated by cash based transactions. Some of
Hmm.
them do not know, do not use a point of sale machine, do not use cards, do not use swipe. They do not know what a credit system is, right? Probably they don't even have a bank account. So this motivated them to get into the system. But the best part about it is it spoke to them in a language that they understand. They gauge the trust, right? So that's the transition I see. And this 11 different languages was not only by uh, a normal voice. There's a company called PhonePe who also is into the soundbox business, right? So they, just to gain that last mile of trust, or the best mile of trust, they probably they took a voice that most of India recognizes, right? He's a superstar. He's been a legend in the movie Bollywood section, and I'm sure he's a very popular personality. He's Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. So they used his voice as a voiceover, as a confirmation code. So whenever a transaction happens to them, they are sure that the superstar is talking to them. And when the superstar is talking to them, they would probably feel, hey, if Amitabh Bachchan is saying it, it probably might be true that I do have money in my bank account, right? So that is the amount. That's how I see a large problem being solved. When I see a large problem, I'm talking about people who were not ready or who were not motivated enough to look into the digital products that offered them financial solutions, right?
Hmm.
We talk about debit cards, credit cards, net banking, and whatnot. But what came to the picture is someone who could talk to them in their language, a voice they could hear, and also a transaction that is as simple as that would go into the bank account. So today, I think we have around like I say, 8.5 million stores using that particular soundbox, and I think the number is about to grow. So that is something that I could relate to as reaching the last mile in a country like India, where English is not preferably the popular language, but a language that someone aspires to know. I think this has been something around me that I could talk about, in terms of accessibility and how you can talk about gaining trust. It's more of an empathy game here to get more in the technology. That's how I could relate to that, Brian.
Well,
Back to
the
you.
trust piece is so interesting because it's any relationship has to be founded on trust. But I think what was really interesting is 22 languages, hundreds of dialects, there's thousands of combinations, and accessibility is much of the alike, right? There is a variety of different challenges that fall under the accessibility space. And so the ability to kind of localize that in a way,
Yeah.
and from the context of your conversation, is that speech confirmation. Yes, it built trust, but it also was around being able to interact with different, user cohorts or different dialects, different languages that ultimately was able to really scale. And I think that's the piece that accessibility is still trying and still reaching for, which is how do I create this scalability behind how the solution is provided, whether it's someone with a visual impairment, a hearing impairment, cognitive, what have you, is that how do I localize my offering and my product or my service to the accessibility community?
Yeah.
So I,
To
I
add to
do,
that,
go ahead.
Brian,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
to add to that, one tiny piece, I think I had to mention this. So every problem, it was a need-based solution, right? So when you look back into the times where uh, the world, faced the pandemic era, the post 2020, you know,
Yep.
a lot of people in India were affected by lockdowns, shutdowns, and what was being made available are these retail stores that are one of the major subscribers of the Soundbox today. What happened there is that they are mostly a household store. Like I said, they have a home behind, and they have a setup in front of their home where they have this store, right? And
Sure.
that's where they interact with the customer. They picks up and go. What happened during pandemic was we had social distancing, we have those masks around, we had certain protocols to follow, which made it difficult for the person to be there or get a confirmation back. So what happened back then is one of your phone, a household phone, would have a UPI account, but it never spoke. Probably it is being used by someone in the home. Someone probably is talking there, and that need not necessarily be always near the store in front where the customer is interacting. So to curb that, to keep the UPI account active, and also to get a feedback of a transaction, so this box came out, and it was a Bluetooth connected box to their phone. So that's how it started. So that was the birth of sound boxes. These retail stores, they showed a problem that solved a problem for that that even spoke languages today, and that even closes barriers. So
And the
some
broader
transaction,
application that it has.
yeah, yeah. So it all started by this small household species, right? They're the backbone of this unorganized market, which contributes to the majority chunk of Indian economy. So that's how things scaled. So someone to let's say I'm wearing a mask and coming and say, hey, I need that. Okay, you're at a distant away, the phone is at a distant place, and then you probably made the transaction, and then you probably had to check with someone inside saying, hey, can you confirm if you've got that transaction, have you received that SMS? To bypass that, there was a need calling the sound box, keeping there. I no longer the shopkeeper no longer had to do that, and then he's saying, someone who is talking to him, right? Hey, you've received this transaction, go ahead, don't worry, have a nice day. Yeah, trust. I'm not taking cash, which would probably uh, a lesser a lesser follow protocol. At that point in time,
Sure.
you have to be maintains a certain distance. So that's how it started in India.
It's it's fascinating. I'm sure that we could unpack this part in great lengths, but I do want to kind of close out with one final question. And technology has been a huge part of the conversation, but I'm
Hmm.
curious, what are the biggest disruptors coming into accessibility? And maybe you could share this from the lens of being a product designer or your exposure overall. But I'm curious, what are the disruptors that are coming to to help the accessibility space? Hopefully, it's helping them.
Yeah. So I think the answers lies around us, right? Like, uh, I am someone who is digitally able to do things, but someone might not be digitally able to do things, right?
Hmm.
When I would see that a disruption is truly is when uh, I am a digitally able person to understand or do things. The confidence I have is good. I trust myself that I'll be okay if I'll be using this. When the trust, when the similar amount of trust is being seen in a person who is not that digitally able for whatever reasons, right? For
Sure.
whatever, yeah, I think that is when, as a designer, as an empath, you see you are truly the technology is being made supplied to the last mile. So that's when I feel that is there. To start off with, to give you a close example of why I would say that is during one of my former employments, right? Uh, it was a persona where I had to talk to, most of them were blue collared users, right? And these were users who would rely on daily wages or weekly wages or bi-weekly wages. And they would usually have a job in a mining department or a coaling department. They're professional laborers, they're very skilled people. They know how to do things. They know how to do the tough jobs, right? Being in an environment where they have to be in front of a manufacturing machine or a drive train, or under a particular depth where you're looking at lesser oxygen, or a dusty environment, or an environment where you sweat a lot because there's no breeze coming out, or you are trying to melt something. So these are the users who would be using the same. I mean, I what problem I saw is they are using the same screen that someone in a well suitable environment is like, he was looking at the same buttons that someone in an AC office is probably looking at. He is also looking at the same things, but there had to be a difference, right? The person, an ideal person, was someone who would be sitting there and who would be enjoying it the way it should be. Like, he has no disturbances, he has no manufacturing thing going around him, he's not a certain in a certain depth where he's has lack of oxygen. So that changes some parameters, right? And
Yeah.
I'm happy that today technology is thinking in a way that, okay, we have to reach out to them, right? I would vouch for such technologies that who not only uh, we do design to solve problems, right? We do design. We get a okay. If someone is down there in mining department, let's say oil and gas, we need a feedback. Is the job done? Okay, there are technologies getting better there, but I would feel as humans, as someone who we want to make jobs easy, more keep people more trusted in things. I feel is when we start taking their environments more seriously, right? So let's say if there's a person working in a particular an environment which is of a tough job, right? He would probably be on gloves. He would probably have his eye wearables. Uh, Not very easy for him to use the same interfaces that we do. Probably he wouldn't be able to tap that particular button that you think could be a CTA, that could be a primary button. They need to appeal to them differently. I'm sure technology today is being looked at to cater to that last mile, but I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, because they don't come because they come there and to then they learn the job. So we'll have to help them in their transition of how they understand technology as well. So one of the solutions what I see is uh, accessibility can be more specialized, let's say. That's where I see a way ahead, when I say specialized accessibility, it really wraps it around the persona and the environment that persona is into. And it kind of generates certain standards. Like, we have a certain standards in the community. I mean, being more mining centric, let's say, for example, being
Yeah.
more manufacturing centric, or being more in a place where it's chaotic, let's say the train station, or let's say it's a place where things are sensitive, right? Like uh, when you try to extract oil or gas, it's a different game there, right? And we still
Yeah.
have our people doing that for them. So a template based or a more synchronized niche accessibility approach is what I would see there.
I love it. And I'm going to kind of close out the conversation with just by saying the trust that you've impressed upon is important. I mean, that's a principle of any business that they apply to any other persona, right? And so enabling trust and credibility to your accessibility persona is just another
Mhm.
target audience that is coming to your brand or you want to come to your brand. And that scalability is around technology is driving the ability to create personalization for the variety of different users or visitors or audience that your brand needs to cater to. So this conversation was amazing because I think you've unpacked so much about, leaving the conversation with the fact that building trust, building personas, building personalization, and while so much of the conversation has been, very enlightening, these are principles that have been adopted for marketing practices for their other personas for a while now. And so it's hopefully giving confidence to take some of these principles that have applied to the user base and the brand strategy and to adapt it to accessibility. So I can't thank you enough, RK, for joining today to helping us unpack from your own experience from the pay solution that India has implemented, and want to thank you again so much for joining, and hopefully everyone who's will listen in and enjoy the conversation takes away. So certainly want to give you the opportunity to close out. But again, thank you so much for joining today and sharing this wealth of information.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brian. It was an absolute pleasure to share the airtime with you. And I'm happy that organizations like yours are out there and to spread more awareness about how accessibility or problem solving is looked at from a last mile level. So last mile is something that I would still emphasize. So I would, if I had to sum it up, I would be trust and last mile. So that's my two words for accessibility. And been a pleasure being here. And thank you. Thank you once again.